The way we consume and share news today, it is largely rooted in social media outlets, a reason why it's crucial to look at what's being discussed online. From the hottest issues to trends for our daily social media minute, we're joined by Yerika. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday to
Happy
you.
Thursday.
Now, this has been sort of the disputed topic online, offline, from both political realms. We'll get a closer look of what is happening exactly with the former President Moon Jae-in's dogs, the dogs that were gifted by Kim Jong Un.
That's right. The dogs have been at the center of this heated public debate. Who gets to keep them? And, why should former President Moon Jae-in give them up?
Right.
And President Yoon Suk-yeol's office is making accusations. I don't know. It's gotten really messy and I have to say petty at the same time as well.
And I think there's a consensus around that because, believe me, the general public is aware of when something is politicized. And there is definitely that angle.
Absolutely.
From both of the political spectrum.
That's right. So 2 days ago, former President Moon Jae-in's aides announced that Moon has decided to hand over the two dogs, Songgang and Gomi, to the South Korean presidential archives. The dogs have been transferred. They are hospitalized at a veterinary hospital in Daegu, and they've got medical checkups. I think they are in good health.
Okay, so just in case our listeners are not all caught up, the fate of these dogs have been at the center of this heated debate here in South Korea over the past few days.
Yeah. Well, for now, let me say that the future of the dogs have not been revealed. Nothing is official yet. But to give you a bit of context to the story, Songgang, a male dog, and Gomi, a female dog, Tungsan dogs, they're indigenous breeds. They were gifted to former President Moon Jae-in from North Korean leader Kim Jong Un when the president, former South Korean president, visited Pyongyang in September 2018 for their third summit. The dogs were supposed to be a symbol of long-lasting friendship. How ironic. After Yoon succeeded Moon as president, people started asking questions about the fate of the dogs.
Because other items that doesn't have life in it is usually handed to presidential archives. That's how it's dealt with it. But there was really no precedence of this kind. So in spoken words, the now President Yoon said it would be appropriate for the former president to take the dogs.
Yes.
But you might be asking why the former president can't just hold on to the dogs. He's been the major caretaker. But it's actually a much more complicated issue than it initially reveals to us. It involves a revision of an enforcement ordinance of the Presidential Records Management Act.
Yeah. So simply put, the dogs were a gift to Moon while he was in office. And by law, all living creatures and non-living creatures, objects given to the president during his or her term belong to the state as part of the presidential archives. But a revised law that went into effect earlier this year dictates that a former president can also claim ownership.
Okay.
Now, according to Moon's aides, President Yoon's office never enforced the revision for reasons unknown, they have said. They said in a statement earlier this week that, quote, it must be due to the presidential office's objection. And Moon's aides said they were dumbfounded by the Yoon administration's, quote unquote, ill intentions to make a big deal out of something so petty.
So, of course, the question of how much does it cost to raise these dogs, is that what the former president is trying to avoid? These kind of questions, the petty ones, got raised too.
Exactly. Moon's aides recently told local reporters that it costs the former president nearly 2.5 million won, roughly $1,800 a month to take care of the dogs. And the Yoon administration, they're like, oh, is that why you're giving away the dogs? Is that why you won't keep the dogs? Because it's costing you a lot of money to keep them?
And that's kind of the spin they put on it.
That's right.
And okay, so this is where it got really messy, honestly. Now, of course, the former president is said to have been saddened by the fact that he actually had to say goodbye to dogs that he had largely taken care of, from what I understand. He expressed hope that the presidential archives would take good care of the dogs.
Now, yesterday evening, actually, there were news reports that quoted former President Moon saying that he would be more than happy to adopt the dogs himself if he could. If that ordinance is enforced. And he said it is something he has always wished for anyway, to adopt these dogs.
Okay, so now that he's made that statement clear, it seems that President Yoon's the presidential office needs to respond.
Yes, exactly. And Yoon's office has denied the fact that they have sort of dilly-dallied on the legislative process, saying it was the former president who refused to wait.
So they were working on it, is their statement?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. They were working on it, and all he had to do was wait. But he didn't, and hence this mess. Anyways, Yoon's party has slammed Moon for giving up the dogs, saying he was abandoning them. An official from the presidential office said in a telephone interview with Yonhap News just yesterday that President Yoon is also carefully considering adopting these dogs. But there are things that need to be sorted out first before that decision is made.
It's really not as easy as you and I adopting a dog and holding on to it.
This is not an object.
It's not.
No.
It's treated as, again, a part of the presidential archives, and that's where the stickiness actually begins.
That's right.
I'm going to leave it there for now, but I feel like that doesn't have a sense of finality, does it? Just be aware that, when there is mud being thrown from both sides, there's more to that than meets the immediate eye. All right, on to the second. Fine dust returns as COVID nears its end. We really can't win.
No.
We really cannot win.
Right. The concentration of fine dust, which actually fell during the pandemic, is again showing signs of rising.
Are factories running again?
Yeah, factories are running again. The first fine dust warning this fall was issued on October 1st, which was 49 days earlier compared to the same period last year. So yesterday, the Ministry of Environment conducted what they called a simulation training in response to ultrafine dust disasters. And they conducted this training with related ministries and 17 cities and provinces. Now, the training was conducted under the assumption that the average concentration of ultrafine dust in these cities and provinces was 150 micrograms per cubic meter for more than 2 hours. And during the training session, the operation of public facilities and government-level construction sites was shortened for each city and province.
Okay.
And the system for restricting the operation of Class 5 diesel vehicles were subject to inspections. Yeah.
You noticed the air quality yesterday particularly,
it's terrible.
Right? I happened to be on a high rise, and I just couldn't make sense of where I was, why it was so hazy. It's seemingly cloudy outside.
I walked out of my apartment yesterday morning to come here, and I was like, is that fog in the air?
Right.
Yeah, it was really hazy.
Before sunrise, it's almost ethereal, and you're thinking, that must be fog.
Yeah.
It wasn't, for the record. Okay,
exactly.
so these kinds of simulation trainings are necessary to see if we can better combat the situation.
And of course, the simulation training also involved sending text messages out to the citizens and cutting down the operation of thermal power plants as well. In March of 2019, so 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago now, the Disaster Safety Act stipulated that damage caused by fine dust was a social disaster.
Right, with serious health consequences, both short and long term, it turns out. Now, we understand the severity of it, but it's a regular unwelcome visitor each winter. We have similar conversations, don't we?
That's right. Usually in the winter months, people heat their homes, so the level of domestic fine dust increases, and the substances that cause these ultrafine dust increase as well. And when the air stagnates, these substances accumulate in the atmosphere, and that's why we look out and say, "Oh, what is that? Fog? Why is it so hazy?" Yeah. But when the cold air comes down from the north, actually, there are strong winds that scatter the fine dust-causing substances away from the peninsula. The thing is, I remember 3 years ago, there was a really bad day. The fine dust levels were so bad. And I remember, have we come to... are we finally there? We've been seeing like these things on in
apocalyptic movies.
Exactly, in movies, and everyone's wearing those masks, full face masks, and it's like, okay,
suits.
Yeah, we've finally reached that point, and it made me really depressed, at the thought of having to wear a mask every day.
And this face mask we acclimated to, but that sounds like an entirely different story,
exactly,
doesn't it?
Yep.
COP27 is happening as we speak. Now, as for deciding the framework that these international communities will agree on, of course, it's important. But in practice, are we doing enough? Environmentalists screaming in our faces, just not even close.
And who should be responsible is the big question everyone's asking.
It's
should the richer countries pay more,
It's the most uncomfortable conversation because, let's be honest, me as a consumer too, do I want to pay a heftier price to save planet Earth? Honestly, I would be unhappy about it, even knowing that it's the right thing to do. So that's the tough questions we have to answer.
Really tough.
All right, let's move on to our next buzzword of the day. But honestly, it makes me uncomfortable because we're talking about trying to curb environmental disasters, and hotels don't really get a positive spotlight in that
Not at all.
regard. But he's the crown prince. Ahead of his visit to South Korea, the Saudi crown prince bin Salman booked apparently 400 rooms at the Lotte Hotel.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk in recent months, about whether he's going to come to Korea or not this time round, but it looks like he finally is. It's been confirmed, and his choice of accommodation has been chosen and confirmed. Word is out that he'll be staying at the Lotte Hotel, located in Sogongdong in Junggu, Seoul. It's going to be a short visit, just 2 days. He's currently leading this huge mega construction project in Saudi Arabia called Neom City. And his visit to Korea is aimed at finding investments, basically, and companies, partners for this construction project.
Which would be mutually beneficial, it seems. I'm going to sidestep the environmental angle just to get to that because, it is a hefty project for companies South Korean companies looking to go there to be a part of it.
That's right. And anyways, like you said, an official at the hotel has confirmed that more than 400 rooms have been booked. Some of his advanced team from Saudi Arabia have already checked in prior to his arrival next week.
Okay, I'm just wondering, how does this compare to other world leaders? 400 rooms.
That's a good question.
Right? Someone look it up and let us know. Thank you very much, Erica, for today's stories.
Pleasure.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
We have The World Deconstructed with David coming up next. The country of Morocco is shocked at the death of a young TikToker. We'll get the details next. Leading us, there's a track by Kim Jong Un and Kim Jong featuring Bibi. Halla.
잔머리에 든 건 없어도 행복해 니들처럼 대갈 굴리며 복잡하게 난 살아야 어차피 나는 난 니는 이 싸가진 없어도 예의는 있게 살자 주의와 이 거울 사람들 오지라 보지마 걱정하는 척 열등감만 뿜뿜 숨이 탁 막힐 것 같아 난 니들만 보면 맞아 지나가는 날 잡길래 봤냐 했더니 옆집 민씨 방그제 나도 좋아 친구 축하하러 같이 땜 이것들 눈처리는 있게 아니 내가 매니까 짙게 이게 광대 따위가 와 한심해 아니 왜 자기는 얼마나 고귀한 일들을 하길래 한량도 놈이 보이네 온 동네가 떵떵거리네 인물이 원해 인생 한국은 유명해진 인생 더 유명한 건 희생
시간이나 나고 난 신경 안 써 치마퍼 위에 시조나 한술 드시고 가셔 쓰기만 하면 장문갑제 낚기만 하면 대울세 이럴 어째 난 한량인데 어기여차에 공들을 불러라 영국을 보자 어기여차 음식을 나와라 잔치를 열자 어기여차 배 터지게 먹고 놀아 애를 시킨 다음에 뒤돌아 어기여차 에이 어기여차
자네 그거 들었는가 미신의 둘째 아들놈이 과거에 급제를 했던 놈은 내 그것이 큰 힘을 될 줄 일찍이 알았었단게 민경원 그래 어렸을 적부터 신토박통해 불었지 난 국가마다 집으로 가는 길이야 부채로 가린 내 이코리 실실 속이고 있지 필시 들썩들썩거리지 이 물가파로 내가 왔다지 운동야지 썩썩거리지 물가파로 내가 왔다지 한량도 놈이 보이네 온 동네가 떵떵거리네 인물이 원해 인생 한국은 유명해진 인생 더 유명한 건 힙쟁
시간이나 나고 난 신경 안 써 치마퍼 위에 시조나 한술 드시고 가셔 쓰기만 하면 장문갑제 낚기만 하면 대울세 이럴 어째 난 한량인데 어기여차에 공들을 불러라 영국을 보자 어기여차 음식을 나와라 잔치를 열자
앞뒤가 똑같은 우릴 보고 수근수근 걸을게 이 조합은 뭘까 씨발 점이 어디야 이거 다 좋다 일단 어이 작곡가 힙합 비트함 줘봐 때가 쏙 빠지게 놀아볼라니까 두두
광대를 불러라 연극을 보자 자 음식을 내와라 잔치를 열자 자 배 터지게 먹고 놀아 애를 시킨 다음에 뒤돌아 어기 어차 에이 어기 어차
어기 어차 어기 어차 어기 어차 어기 어차 어기 어차 어기 어차
어기 어차 에이 어기 어차
This is Arirang Radio.
Good Morning Seoul, weekdays 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. The latest updates and current events and trends. And now it's time for us to get a macro perspective of what else is happening on around us in the world. It seems David joins us on the line this morning to take us to the North African country of Morocco. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Lena. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
A quick search has revealed to me that this story perhaps doesn't get enough coverage from my vantage point. And I think that sounds the alarm once more on how news travels maybe halfway across the world or even further and what our priorities are. It seems when I type in Morocco from several search engines, at least at Arirang Radio, I get news of what's to be expected at the World Cup.
Yes, the football player Samuel Eto'o said that Cameroon are going to win the World Cup and they'll beat Morocco in the final. That's dominating it. But I think more broadly, you're correct to point out, well, yesterday we covered news from Poland and today we're covering news from Morocco. If you go online, you're not immediately going to see news from these countries. They're going to be very low down in the feed, or you're going to have to search for them manually, which is what some people do to stay abreast, because otherwise you simply don't hear about them. But it's important that we make the effort to find out what's going on. So yesterday was Poland, and today I thought I would look at Morocco. And most people out there might know it for the fezzes, the red hats, or the 1942 movie starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, Casablanca, with the famous line, "Play it again, Sam." That's set in French occupied Morocco. One last Moroccan fact before we begin, please, which was that 3 days ago, on November the 7th, it was the anniversary of the Green March. Now, you might be saying, well, what is the Green March?
Right.
The Green March is the largest peaceful march in history. It's when 350,000 Moroccans advanced into Spanish-occupied Morocco. So Spain were occupying part of Africa in 1975. 350,000 Moroccans marched peacefully into that area and took it back. They didn't go with guns. They didn't go with tanks. They went with camels and trades, but they peacefully marched in there and reclaimed some of that territory. And that was 3 days ago, the anniversary. So the Green March.
If you're hearing about it for the first time, in all honesty, I'm hearing about it for the first time. That floors me. 350,000 people marching to reclaim their land peacefully without guns.
I've often wondered, this is perhaps not the appropriate time to it, but I've often wondered what would happen if, 1 million or so people started walking north. That might be the solution. Yeah.
It's probably not the right time to talk about when the provocations have just been heightened, but that's a really interesting thought.
Yes.
All right, let's take our listeners to a particular headline that you may have not heard about, but I think we ought to be paying attention to because it was a heinous crime, unwarranted, a murder of a young man in his 20s, from what I understand, someone who had a pretty big TikTok influence.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to give the positive signs of Morocco just before we talk about this, so it doesn't give listeners, oh, Morocco is full of violence, because not necessarily the case. A young man, Anur Othmani, TikTok star, very big social media presence in Morocco, last Saturday, November the 5th, was found slaughtered, was found murdered in his own apartment in Tangier in Morocco. And this has caused shockwaves because such a violent murder of a public figure,
Right.
A social media star, has sent much of society into a bit of a tizzy. They've been a bit shocked by what's happened. They've taken to social media. They've asked for changes in the law because simply they didn't expect that something like this could or would happen. But a young man has been murdered in his own apartment.
The untimely death, I think, shocks anyone, but it is in his own private apartment where he's supposed to feel safe and protected. I can see why, as a regular citizen, that might send even bigger shock waves. It might mean that you're also vulnerable to certain parts of the country where you're not feeling protected.
Or it might be to do, it might not just be regional, but it might be to do with the nature. So this young man is not a politician. He's not political. He's a social media creator. He's known for his dance videos. He's known for the challenges that he does. He's part of TikTok, and, you know, he's not out there spreading certain ideologies or political things. I think that's what makes it even more traumatizing, is that this was a young man seemingly full of the joys of life and spreading that through social media. Just prior to his murder, all his pictures and videos from social networks were deleted. And many followers were stunned to find out, why has this happened? What's gone on? And then just after that, they found out that this young man had lost his life. Now, all the details are still coming out. It happened last Saturday, but as you know, in cases like this, we don't have the definitive story yet. But followers were very surprised to see all his social media suddenly went. And then the next news they heard about him was that he'd been murdered in his own house.
So that might not necessarily be in chronological order, but because there are these unconfirmed details surrounding his death that have circulated shortly after the initial reports, I guess that also puts the family members of the deceased in a really uncomfortable and tricky circumstance.
Yeah, I'm not very good at biology, but I don't think it would be possible for him to delete his photos after he passes away, but there might be some new science going on there. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at such a traumatic, but that might point to the person who is suspected of committing the crime. His mother apparently found him in his apartment, and there have been, you know, his mother has been photographed in the press. She came to visit her young son and found him in that state. And just imagine, as a mother, as a father, as anybody, going into the apartment of somebody you love and then seeing them no longer as they once were. And that's played out, yes.
Here's the thing, because this has clearly shocked Morocco, people are going online to not just mourn the death of this young man, but hashtags are trending. Justice for Anur. We are all Anur are simultaneously trending.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's two narratives, or there's two movements that have arisen from this shocking crime. One is the solidarity. We often see a great deal of solidarity in situations like this. So, you know, I stand with, or me too. We've seen these things, and that's what's happening in Morocco. People are saying we are all Anur, but the other side of this is this demand that greater prison sentences, that greater punishment be exacted on those that perpetrate such heinous crimes. And so you can see an incident like this is capable of building great solidarity among the people, but it also has the possibility of whipping up this desire for retribution. I don't want to call it bloodlust, but you can see that there is this, we must punish these people very, very severely. And those two aspects are arising at the moment in Morocco.
Because it seems not just a suspect, but a suspect's family member is now in police custody and being questioned for motives of allegedly trying to destroy evidence.
Yeah, and so just to reaffirm that all of this is kind of breaking news. It's very hard to stay on top of it all, but a 17-year-old young woman, a teenager, basically, a female teenager. She has been arrested for her involvement in the alleged killing of Amor, which would point to a social media relationship or something to do with that. That's just speculation. But police have also arrested a member of her family for being complicit in the crime. The family member is accused of destroying the murder weapon, not reporting the crime. So these people haven't been convicted of those crimes yet, but police have put the two suspects under surveillance. And so that would point to this being something related to social media. It might suggest why the photos were deleted. But, you know, if we hear if we hear that a young social media star has been killed in our apartment by a member of the opposite sex, we wouldn't immediately assume that it would be a young man killed by a woman, but that is the situation that looks like it's taking place.
Okay, so just the fact that the hashtag Justice for Anor is actually trending throughout Moroccan social medias, I do wonder if that's a cry from the public to have, as you've said, stricter punishment and stronger penal codes in place.
In Morocco, if you're involved in murder, you get life imprisonment. That's what it is, which is stricter than some other places, I think. You know, being involved in a murder results in life imprisonment. Morocco still has the possibility. It has the death penalty. It has capital punishment as a law, but it hasn't carried that out since 1993. It's a bit similar to South Korea in that regard at the moment. If my legal understanding is still correct, South Korea still kind of has the death penalty, but it just doesn't carry it out. I'll stand correction on that. That's the way I understand it. So Morocco doesn't carry out capital punishment, and you know that's more in line with Western norms. I think it doesn't execute people, but it seeks different ways to make amends in society. And last year's report from the Director of National Security said that in Morocco violent crime had been dropping for the past 6 years. So I don't think it's correct that if we think of Morocco, we immediately think of a crime-riddled country, because it seems to have been dropping. And I think that's why this crime is causing such unrest in society, because I think Morocco was finally getting to the place where that kind of thing doesn't happen here. And as we've noticed over the weekend with the tragic death of Amor, yes, it sadly does.
Thank you very much, David, for always shifting our perspective to a country perhaps that doesn't get enough coverage in South Korean news cycles. The world is deconstructed just a little bit more. Thank you very much. We'll speak to you again tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
You're listening to
Arirang
Radio. Arirang Radio.
And that brings us to the end of the first hour of our program, but we do have part two coming right up, so don't go anywhere. Today's question of the day, I want to extend that one more time to all of our listeners. So towards the end of the year, we start to look forward to the next year in trying to figure out what our trend and consumption habits may be. Now, there's an annual report published by Kim Nando from the Seoul National University and his team. It's trend casting for 2023. Can you make any predictions of your own? How will our consumption patterns change next year? You can give us your 2 cents by visiting our official YouTube channel. Find us at Arirang Radio K-pop. Here's a track by B2B to take us into our second hour. Beautiful Pain, 아름답고도 아프구나.
사랑을 만나 이별을 하고 수없이 많은 날을 울고 웃었다. 시간이란 건 순간이란 게 아름답고도 아프구나. 낭만이란 신 글씨체 같아. 말하고 있어 막연한 보답. 아픔을 피해도 다른 아픔을 만나. 옆에 있던 행복을 못 찾았을까. 너를 보내고 얼마나 나 많이 후회했는지 몰라. 지금 이 순간에도 많은 걸 놓치고 있는데 말야. 시간은 또 흘러 여기까지 왔네요. 지금도 결국 추억으로 남겠죠. 다시 시작하는 게 이젠 두려운걸요.
love than pain. Yeah, let's learn from our mistakes. 우린 실패로부터 성장해. 사랑은 하고 싶지만 nobody wants to deal with the pain that follows. No, I understand them though. Yeah, 이해돼. 사랑이라는 게 매롭게 하던 게 이제는 매일 괴롭게 해. 아픈 건 없어지겠지만 상처들은 영원해. But that's why it's called beautiful pain.
기다리질 않나요 오늘도 결국 어제가 되겠죠 다시 시작하는 게 너무나 힘든걸요 어김없이 끝이 날까봐 사람을 만나 이별을 하고 수없이 많은 날을 울고 웃었다 아픔은 반복돼 이렇게 또 아픈데 또 찾아와 사랑은 난 몰래 우린 누구나 바보가 돼 무기력하게 누워 순간에 오래도록 기다렸다는 듯 아픈 사랑 앞에 물들어가 그대를 만나 사랑을 하고 그 어떤 순간보다 행복했었다 그대는 부디 아프지 말고 아름다웠길 바란다 사랑을
아리랑 radio.
Delivering messages of Earth and the environment through music is a 7-member K-pop boy group TAN, also known as the Eco Idols. How did the members of TAN become interested in the environment?
둘, 셋! To all 아리랑 라디오! 안녕하세요, TAN입니다. 일상생활에서 무심코 하는 행동들은 수많은 탄소를 배출시키고 결국 온실 효과를 일으켜 지구와 환경을 망가뜨리는 원인이 됩니다.
Things we do in our daily lives that we don't really think about contribute to carbon emissions and the greenhouse effect, which hurts the environment and our planet Earth. Let's look at how the members of TAN help reduce carbon emissions in their everyday lives.
안 쓰는 가전제품의 플러그는 뽑아주세요.
마트에 갈 땐 비닐봉지 대신 장바구니를 이용해주세요.
엘리베이터 대신 계단을 이용하면 탄소는 줄이고 체력은 올라갑니다.
You can reduce carbon emissions and better your health by unplugging electronic devices you don't use, utilizing reusable bags instead of plastic ones when shopping, and using the stairs instead of the elevator.
샤워 시간은 줄이고 빨래는 한 번에 모아서 해주세요.
핸드폰을 절전 모드로 사용하면 에너지의 최대 20%를 절약할 수 있고요.
영화관에서 핸드폰을 잠시 꺼두는 것도 탄소를 줄이는 데 도움이 됩니다.
Reducing your shower time and doing your laundry in one go, using your cell phones on power-saving mode and turning it off while in the movies can also help with reducing carbon emissions.
일상 속 탄소 줄이기 챌린지 당신도 함께 해주세요.
Small actions, big changes. Offer the challenge.
Arirang Radio.
Arirang Radio.
The time is 8 a.m.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.